Right out again. Thanks for coming out. We're going to talk about fertility and virility. I'm also going to learn how to say the words that I wrote down here. First and foremost, this presentation of information is not medical advice. I always have to start with that. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not licensed by the state of Wisconsin. I'm not pretending to play doctor. This can be a sensitive topic. We will be discussing erectile dysfunction, miscarriages, birth defects, and other potentially upsetting topics related to fertility. I want to get that out of the way up front. You are allowed to ask questions, and asking a question does not mean you're asking for yourself. No one in this room will be allowed to shame, judge, or minimize anyone else in this room. So says Drew, so must it be true, okay? When we have questions on these topics, first of all, even saying erectile dysfunction can be embarrassing for some people. Whatever. We're going to talk about it, okay? We're going to say the word vagina at some point. It's going to come up. It's not a big deal. If you have questions, ask. Okay. I want to start with some common problems related to fertility with solutions. And again, this is what I found clinically over the years. I'm not sure if it's right for you. First problem of erectile dysfunction, usually what I find in those clients is that their heart and their prostate needs more nourishment. The heart because it's responsible for the blood flow to the penis. The prostate to make sure that our testosterone production is really good and that there's nothing hanging up the blood flow that's coming from the heart to the penis. Next common problem, slow sperm speed. This one, usually we use essential fatty acids. That's your fish oils, your flaxseed oil, that sort of thing, sesame seed oil. And testicle nourishment. That gets into minerals typically, but there's a lot of options. We'll go into some of those later on in this packet. Another common problem is thick seminal fluid. Had anybody heard of this being a problem with reproductive health? This was an interesting one that came to my attention about 2 years ago. I had a client who came in, and what they said was the doctor said the sperm are great, but they can't get through the seminal fluid. I was like, how is that even a thing? And what they said was happening was when ejaculation was taking place, the fluid was slowing down the sperm from ever finding an egg. When I tested that person, they needed hydration. Makes sense, thin out the fluid. So we used some minerals to do that, and then some digestive support. I think part of the reason the fluids of his body were so thick was he was eating a lot of dry foods, that's what I would call them, breads, pastas, cookies, cakes, not stuff like celery, which is obviously a wet food, or an apple, which is obviously a wet food. Next problem, low libido, whether it's male or female. Typically the solution involves the pituitary or the hypothalamus glands getting nourished up. Those two glands in your brain are the master glands of the body. They control the way that all your hormones get produced by sending out the signals for the production of those hormones. The libido is low. The signals to have a libido may not even be taking place, so you can't blame your body then. It's not being told what to do. Next problem, vaginal dryness. Typically, this involves hydrating minerals and then coconut oil topically. The reason I recommend coconut oil over something like a KY jelly or that sort of thing is because the coconut oil is antimicrobial, so it'll actually help prevent things like yeast infections. And it's natural, so there's no additives, no chemicals, nothing weird in there. Next common problem, pH imbalance in the vagina or the uterus. The reason that this is a big deal is if the pH is too aggressive, let's say, it can actually destroy the sperm before they get a chance to find an egg. Usually this means the person's eating something that is offending their body. Often digestive support is the solution. Next common problem, and whenever somebody brings this up in the office, whenever a client brings this up, they say it like they're supposed to be afraid of it, okay? I deal with this at least once a month, sometimes more often. Difficulty orgasming. If you think it's only a female problem, you're incorrect, okay? Usually the heart needs some nourishment and the nerves need some nourishment. We have thousands of nerve endings at our genitals. We got to make sure they're healthy so they can actually feel the sensations that help lead to an orgasm. Before I go on, questions about the common problems section. Okay, it's just an appetizer. Let's turn the page. All right. So this part I like a lot. This morning at about 4 a.m. my daughter woke me up. She was crying. And then she woke me up enough to get me up, and then she went back to sleep promptly, which I was grateful for. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to add a section to the class. This is what I wrote. Common patterns found clinically. For men, the 3 areas most likely need nourishment to increase fertility: the adrenal glands, the testes, and the prostate. So I've listed a whole bunch of supplements for these areas. I recommend you get tested to see if your body actually wants these nutrients. I'm going to go over some case studies next, and you'll be able to relate the case studies to what I have under these areas for common nourishment for the adrenals, for the testes, for the prostate. There's some overlap between the areas, and that's just a great thing because 2 birds with 1 stone. Okay? So the first clinically successful program was my own. I'll get to that, it's on the last page. It's supplements I took before my wife and I conceived. The second case study I want to go over. 30-year-old male, had no previous children. The doctor said slow sperm. He and his wife had been trying for a few months. Wife got tested, everything looked good on her end of things. Husband got tested, slow sperm. Okay. The doctor recommended a couple of prescriptions. They weren't comfortable with taking prescriptions. They also didn't like the cost of the prescriptions. What I found on his case was that wheat germ oil at 6 a day, our zinc product at 6 a day, a supplement called Simplex M at 6, and a multivitamin is what helped. They conceived their first child 4 months after they began the program. So when we look at these supplements that helped out case study number 2, the wheat germ oil is loaded with those essential fatty acids. When we look at what areas of the body benefit from that, especially the testes benefit from it. The zinc. Zinc is the mineral that's most important for testosterone production in the human body, whether male or female. If they're dealing with a zinc deficiency, it's most likely going to eventually lead to a testosterone issue. Aside from that, it's also really good for the prostate. It helps the adrenals function, even helps the testes. So for a guy, even if he's 30, even if he's 20, I even see it in some of the 8 and 10-year-olds that I work with that need zinc. The Simplex M is a very unique supplement. It's 4 supplements in one. It's a combination of pituitary support with thyroid support, with testicular support, and with adrenal support. So almost all the areas that I clinically find most commonly in men are covered by this Simplex M. On that first page where I mentioned low libido, Simplex M is also really great for guys dealing with low libido. And then the multivitamin, because this guy, while the doctor didn't report thick semen, he was pretty devoid of living food in his diet, celery, apples, broccoli, etc. It was really exciting to work with him because he was worried that if things kept up at the same pace, that he would get too old to want to have kids. So it was nice that they were able to conceive 4 months after the program. Questions on case study number 2? Cool. Case study number 3. 42-year-old male, a little difference in age here. He had no previous children. The doctor reported no issue with his sperm, but he had a history of fatigue and tiredness. So he and his wife had been trying for some time. They both got checked out. They were both told that everything was totally fine. Everything was in working order. When he came in, we checked in with his body, and his prostate came up as an issue, and his adrenals came up as an issue. The bigger issue for me was he didn't like taking pills. So I had to be as concise as possible. I had to keep his program as small as possible. So I used a supplement. It's an herbal supplement called Prostico. And it has a lot of the things that I have listed underneath prostate, like saw palmetto is in it, nettles are in it. It also has essential fatty acids in it. So 2 for 1 again. The adrenal complex, because this guy's adrenals were shot. He was a day trader. I won't pretend to know anything about that profession. My understanding is it's really stressful and involves large sums of money. So his adrenals were shot. And then the wheat germ oil, because in general, it's really important for reproductive health to have a lot of essential fatty acids going. Conception happened 3 months after the program began. They're currently awaiting the arrival of their second child. This is really exciting because they don't even live in Wisconsin anymore. They decided to have a second kid. He went back on his program. In the second month that they tried, she got pregnant with her second kiddo. It's really exciting. And they're fun to check in with. Questions on case study number 3? Okay. Case study number 4. 35-year-old male, splitting the difference age-wise, no children. This was the guy, the doctor reported the seminal fluid being too thick. The client reported difficulty gaining and sustaining an erection also. So, uncommon for a 35-year-old male, but not unheard of by any means. We started with heart support. That's that Cardio Plus. Cardio Plus is basically a heart multiple vitamin. It gives you vitamin E, vitamin C, a bunch of B vitamins. It helps the heart to work. The Mintrans supplement was next, and that's a blend of minerals, the majority of which are used by the endocrine system, which includes the reproductive organs for their basic function, their basic tasks. Cataplex B to help his heart work better, that's a B complex. Cataplex F pearls, which have a little bit of testicular support in them. They also have some essential fatty acids in them, so very important for reproductive health in guys. And then Lactens, which is a digestive aid, because his diet was pretty much devoid of any living food. It was all dry foods. Remember, he came in at one point and he said, well, I had a really good breakfast. It was really light. I think I'm going to lose some weight. I had 3 hard-shell tortillas for breakfast. And he said it with a totally straight face. And I was like, so we're going to talk about nutrients. And your breakfast is lacking, okay? All right, on that case, conception happened just 2 months after the program began. And that was really exciting. He asked me which supplement allowed him to get healthy. And I had to remind him that it was his food first, and improving that, and then the combination of these nutrients, because it's never one thing. For better or worse, it's never one thing. Questions on case study number 4? Okay. You're making my job way too easy. Let's go on to women, okay? As far as women go, clinically, the 3 areas most likely to need nourishment to increase fertility, I find it's heart, uterus, and ovaries. The supplements for heart section could probably be 3 pages long. The gentleman who started Standard Process, his name is Dr. Royal Lee, he always said the heart eats first. So whenever you take any nutrient, according to Dr. Royal Lee, the heart took the nutrient first, and whatever was left over got dispersed throughout the body. When we think about that from a pregnancy standpoint, that sounds a lot like a mom's body, where the kiddo gets the nutrient first to make sure that it has everything that grows appropriately, and mom gets the leftovers. So when it comes to heart health and fertility, moms that are under my care tend to get a lot of heart nourishment. My wife was on quite a bit during her pregnancy. I'll get into that later. Supplements for the uterus, it's a smaller list, but one of the big ones I want to point out on here is called Protofood. Protofood is a big deal, especially once conception occurs, if there's an issue with making sure that that cervix stays closed. During pregnancy, especially as it progresses, it can start to open up. That can cause all sorts of complications. The best way that I know of to help keep that cervix strong and closed is adequate protein intake. Sometimes during pregnancy, the thought of stomaching chicken breast or eggs is not an ideal situation. So we use a supplement like Protofood to make sure we still get adequate protein. And then on the next page, I should point one thing out. Some of these supplements like Chase Tree and Femco and Wild Yam Complex are herbal in nature. I don't recommend those during pregnancy. It's very unlikely it would ever harm the child, but I never want to take any risks when we're dealing with pregnancy. And then the supplements for the ovaries, there's a lot of overlap between that and the supplements for testicles because they have essentially the same person. The difference is just male versus female. One of the big ones that I want to point out for the ovaries is the Femco, because that's really good for helping to balance out the hormone levels in the body. There's a little bit of liver support in that product also. So the way that that helps is your liver is where your body balances your hormone levels. Not so much where it produces hormones, but where it balances them out. So clinically, if I find somebody who's dealing with ovary stress and liver stress, one of the first things I'm going for is Femco, because I know it can help both of those areas. All right, clinically successful programs for women. First, my wife Amy. That's on the next page. We'll get to it, I promise. The second case study, 28-year-old female, no previous children. They had been attempting conception for 8 months when she began the program. There was quite a bit of stress going on in her reproductive organs, and I think a lot of that was because they had been trying for so long, they had been trying different things, it wasn't really working, and it was getting to her. The stress of it all was getting to her. I instructed her to stop attempts for 3 months. That doesn't mean no physical interaction with her husband, but that meant make sure that that uterus got to rest for 3 months. No major action. If they were going to have intercourse, then a condom was going to be used. I just didn't want the body thinking it was supposed to be trying to conceive during that time. Wheat germ oil was used for the essential fatty acids, eutrophin to strengthen the uterus so that once conception took place, the house, so to speak, would withstand it. And then Fortil B12. This is a really unique supplement. It's incredible for uterus nourishment. It's kind of like a uterus multiple vitamin. They took a 3-month break from trying. They conceived twins their first month back at it. That was the first fertility case that I ever worked on. It had me totally freaked out. Okay. She was like, do you think it'll work? And I was like, well, I know what to do clinically. I've studied it. And then she came in and she's like, we're pregnant. And I was like, great. She stayed under my care, and then 5 months later, she's like, Drew, it's twins. I was like, it's twins, that's incredible. She's like, did you know it was going to be twins? Did the supplements make them be twins? And I was like, no, please no. She's a hoot, her mom's a client, she's a client, her kids are clients, fun to work with. Case study number 3, 24 years old, no previous children, history of multiple miscarriages. And she's great to work with. She had, a big part of her case, I should say, was the emotional piece. Because she had conceived, she had made it as far as 4 months and then miscarried. Multiple times, sometimes in the 1st or 2nd month, but it was ongoing. And she really wanted kids, but it was really psyching her out because of the miscarriages. On her, I found that it was heart, and it wasn't Cardio Plus that we used, but a supplement called Vasculin. Mintran, because hearts love Mintran, and it's also really good for the endocrine and reproductive organs. She dosed at 12, and when I met her, she weighed 95 pounds, maybe 100 pounds. She dosed for 12 Mintran. So her body was really hungry for minerals. That's what I'm trying to say. Wheat germ oil, because we know it helps. And tuna omega-3, because that's more of the essential fatty acids. It's also really good for the heart. Okay? She brings in her kiddo. Kiddo's almost 3 years old now. Kiddo gets consults too. We have to keep a close eye on kiddo. Because kiddo likes to take the dirt out of that plant behind you and spread it all over the floor, because they're a farming family. And she always thinks that she's helping us prepare our crop for next year or something. It's pretty cute. It's pretty sweet. They are planning on having their next kid. She is 38 weeks pregnant now with her 2nd kiddo. She did the same protocol again, a little bit more heart support this time because she's been chasing around a kid this whole time. Case study number 4, 26-year-old, no kids, severe cramping in her lower abdomen and vagina during intercourse. And maybe I shouldn't have written intercourse, it was anything physical. She said when she began to get excited sexually, she would start to have cramps. Which sounds like one version of hell to me, just saying, okay? Doctor gave her a clean bill of health. She went to her gynecologist, full blood work panel, everything came back as a clean bill of health. And this doctor really upset me and really upset her. Said, why don't you try to have a glass of wine before you have sex? Loosen up a little bit. That was the recommendation. Mind-blowing to me. That's just like incredibly invalidating. Coming to you with a serious physical, medical concern, you're telling me to drink more alcohol. Very invalidating if you ask me. I never told the client to do that. So what did we do? We did magnesium lactate first. You haven't seen that on the list yet? Magnesium helps muscles relax. Just during the consult, when I put my hands on her abdomen, I felt incredible muscular tension in her abdominal muscles. I think that's part of the cramping. Any more blood flow to that region, they're already tense and tight. Now you want me to do more, and cramps. Mintran, she needed minerals, zinc. I didn't do a saliva analysis on her, which is the way we check in with hormone levels. I would not have been surprised at all to find out that her testosterone was low, because she had a non-existent libido, and testosterone really helps with libido. We used OVXP because I also found some ovary stress, and Femco because I also found some liver stress. That's that Femco coming in, helps liver and ovaries. I can report now that 6 weeks into her program, her cramping is gone, her libido is up, her husband is coming in for his initial consult because of the change he has seen in his wife in just 6 weeks. He walked in and he did one of the funniest things. It's happened to me a couple of times in my career. The husband walks in, very serious. So you're the guy that's helping my wife with all the stuff. Very serious face. It's like, yep, that's me. Well, nothing, right? He's like, let me shake your hand. Oh, I'm so happy to meet you. Because the libido's up, right? Any husband's going to be happy about that. All right, questions on the lady side of things, on any of those case studies there? Okay.
Do the saliva testing too?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can order that. And that's whether it's for adrenal health or for reproductive health, one of my favorite tools. Okay. Good question. Let's flip the page over. All right, time to talk about me. My personal conception protocol, which began 3 months prior to conceiving. I was on zinc liver chelate and 6 of them a day. That's 60 milligrams of zinc. It's a good dose of zinc. I am sure that my swimmers were little Michael Phelps in there, okay? I was on calcium lactate. It's an essential mineral. It's also really important for immune health. I want to talk about that a little bit more. In my family, there's a history of prostate issues. Many of the men on my father's side of the family had prostate cancer, had to have their prostates removed. One of the things I find clinically for prostate health issues is immune challenges. So I went on the calcium lactate because calcium is major immune support in this form, especially to fight viruses. You can break a fever with calcium lactate, actually. I was on magnesium lactate because it's really smart if you're on zinc and calcium to also take magnesium so that you're balancing out your minerals in your body. I was on the adrenal complex at 3 of them a day. That's also a really good dose. I did that because I knew that I was going to be caring for my wife during her whole pregnancy, and probably, my wife's incredible, but I expected 1 a.m., I want pickles, go get me pickles, waking me up in the middle of the night thing. So I wanted to make sure my adrenals were healthy to put up with that, tolerate it well. I was on the wheat germ oil. Those essential fatty acids are crucial. And Simplex M, because again, the Simplex M helps the brain and the thyroid. It also helps the adrenals and the testes to work. I knew I had adrenal stuff going on. I knew I wanted to make sure that my testes were making really good swimmers. I was taking all that zinc. Simplex M made sense. Instead of me having to take 2 or 3 other supplements, the Simplex M did it all in one. And my wife, she also began this combination 3 months prior to our intended conception date. She was on the calcium lactate for her immune system, and because growing a human involves an incredible amount of calcium to be given to that human. Same thing with the magnesium. She didn't need quite as much zinc. In general, women don't need as much testosterone as a guy. She was on OVXP to make sure that her fallopian tubes were nice and clear, that those eggs were strong, that they could make that trek all the way down to the uterus. And the Simplex F, which is almost identical to Simplex M. The difference is there's no testicle support in it, there's ovary support. Wanted to make sure her ovaries were really happy, really healthy. Questions on my personal protocol or my wife's protocol?
Had you guys been trying prior to,
Nope. We decided we were going to start trying.
Okay.
And one of the conversations we had was, how can we put ourselves in the best place possible for success?
Right.
And I had been studying this topic for years already, because if you ask the 22-year-old version of me how many kids I want to have, I said 6. Okay. So like for years and years, I had been gearing up for this, like, oh, it's going to be great, it's going to go perfectly, I'm going to figure it out, I'm going to study it. So part of the conversation we had about we want to start to have kids was, what prep work do we have to do so that we can be as successful as possible? After 3 months, we conceived in the first month of attempts. Yeah. Really appreciative of that too. Yeah, Frank.
For coming up with your personal protocol.
Yeah.
Did you work with someone who muscle tested you, or?
Yeah.
Or how did you?
Yeah, I worked with Jeff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Jeff, the owner here. I had him muscle test me. what I did was I came in and I expressed to him what I had seen clinically, those main 3 areas. I said, I want you to focus on those areas. If anything's wrong in them, even if it isn't the priority, I want it handled. And that's part of the reason I was on 6 zinc and the calcium, to make sure my immune system was really humming. And I brought in the information of the things that I thought would be a good idea. Everything on this list except for the calcium was on the list, or the calcium and the magnesium I didn't think of, Jeff thought of. And there were some things that I was thinking I needed that Jeff tested me and said you don't need them. And I'm all about simple.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a melding of the minds.
Uh-huh. And then for Amy, she worked with you, or she
Yeah.
worked with Jeff? Uh-huh.
Yeah, Amy worked with me for the muscle testing. Jeff gave me the idea for the calcium and the magnesium at that point. I think for Amy, I was thinking wheat germ oil, zinc, Simplex F, Ovex P, and eutrophin. But she didn't test for the wheat germ oil or for the eutrophin. Didn't have a negative impact. The 3rd trimester of her pregnancy, we added in eutrophin to make sure that as the uterus expands, it goes like 600% of its original size. There's no other organ in the body that can tolerate that sort of thing. That just amazes me to this day. So at that point, because of the way the uterus was changing size so dramatically, I muscle tested her for eutrophin to make sure it could tolerate that change in size. And just think about any other part of your body getting 6 times bigger than it is, and then going back to its original size after a 10-month period. Just blows my mind. Just totally incredible. And that is a good word for pregnancy in general. Weird. It's like this little alien moving around in there. It has its own thing, its own thoughts. It's totally amazing, but it's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you, so when you say you're testing for all this, is this blood work that you're doing, or?
No, we do muscle testing here.
Oh.
It's totally non-invasive. There's no needles. You keep your clothes on. Yeah. Takes, the consults are 10 minutes long. These 3 can tell you all about it if you'd like to hear about it from a real person instead of the guy selling it to you. Right. But then again, you can ask Mom.
We have mother online, yeah.
I think Anne's been coming here since
Long time, forever.
like almost as long as I've been here, maybe longer. So a decade now?
Yeah, probably.
But she's still gaining. It's incredible. You're supposed to get worse as you age. She's doing the opposite.
Yeah.
Amazing. Frank.
Your protocol,
Yeah.
Amy's protocol, anybody's protocol in the case stories you have,
Yeah.
does all of the preparation have an effect on the unborn child or the fetus or the baby, whatever you want to call it, in terms of their health in the womb?
Yeah, I think so.
Uh-huh.
I think it's more so on Mom's protocol than Dad's.
Uh-huh.
Because Mom's body is sustaining that life. It's, again, amazing, weird, amazing. Because it is doubling its responsibility for taking out the trash, so the liver has to work twice as hard, because instead of only having its 40 trillion cells to manage, it has a whole nother human's first 2 cells, but then increasing to billions and then trillions. That's just the liver. Then all that blood flow, the heart has to pump that out. The adrenals have to pump that anti-inflammatory hormone for 2 humans to make sure nothing gets unnecessarily inflamed, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So both of them help the initiation of the process. Then Mom's protocol during the pregnancy, everything she eats, kiddo gets a piece of, including the whole food supplements.
Yes.
This was the conception protocol, not the during the pregnancy protocol.
Mm-hmm.
The during the pregnancy protocol list was longer. Mine was longer too, because I really had to make sure I stay on my A game. I had to take care of my wife, because she's growing a human. Tracy, was your hand up?
Wait, you kind of answered it. I was asking if she didn't change once she was pregnant, going on different.
What changed?
I know they always, right here, they give you all the prenatal items at the doctor and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm assuming she did this versus taking that.
She had some pretty incredible morning sickness the first trimester, so we were using Protofood to make sure she got adequate protein.
And so I was going to ask, I know a friend that's pregnant now. She said she's been miserable. I don't know if there was stuff that could help with.
Yeah, it's called B6 niacinamide. Amy used that. It's incredible for morning sickness and for nausea in general. And then Beta Food she also used during that first trimester to help. The B6 niacinamide, it's usually 4 to 6 a day. The Beta Food, it's easily 6 a day. Some women feel better on even 9 or 12 a day. It's incredible liver nourishment, gallbladder nourishment. It makes your skin look better too, just for the record. And then other first trimester stuff for Amy. Antranex, because her sinuses started to flare up a little bit. So that was just more like for comfort, for allergy stuff. It was shifting into spring, so we added an Antranex to help with that. Other questions on our protocols? All right, we're going to talk tips and tricks then. The tips and tricks, the first one, remain stationary post-coitus for 15 minutes. This is to make sure that the semen doesn't exit the body prematurely. If you get up and you start moving around, it's less likely to find its way. The very best position is to have a rolled up towel under your butt when you're laying on your back, so everything's flowing this way. That's ideal. Now this is one that doctors don't talk about a lot, and I actually got this from a medical journal report from the BBC when I was abroad 2 years ago. Physical contact the entire time that the female stays stationary, because a set of hormones, the calming, soothing ones, gets released when the woman is laying there with the mate, because the body becomes aware, I can conceive a child because I'm not doing it alone. I have someone to do it with. Because when that first initiates, we need those hormones in place to make sure that conception actually takes place. So not only do you want to stay stationary for 15 minutes, you want to make sure you're snuggling that whole time. That helps the hormone piece. Then as far as frequency, to make sure that you conceive, attempts every 48 hours, starting 48 hours prior to ovulation and then concluding 48 hours after ovulation. So that means in 6 days, 3 times, in case you're doing the math in your head. How do you know when your ovulation is? Track your ovulation. There's an app for that. Okay, it used to be a calendar and all sorts of weird stuff. There's an app for it. Just download the app. I think it's free. Here's a personal recommendation. Take a vacation during the first attempts at conception. Chill out. Go to a different place. Have a relaxed schedule where you can be intimate at whatever time of day you like without worrying about the neighbors knocking on the door about the loose gutter, the mailman showing up, the kids down the street put a frisbee on your roof. Just get away for a while. It doesn't have to be all 6 days. However, if it can be all 6 days, I recommend it. Coconut oil is a great lubricant. It's inexpensive, helps. And then attempts between the first sleep and the second sleep for conception. That probably doesn't mean a whole lot to anybody in the room. This was that same report from the BBC. They went through all these old medical journals, and what they found was these doctors kept referring to first sleep and second sleep. And what they meant was these doctors said that people were supposed to sleep in 2 parts. And it was actually a survival thing that was ingrained in us, because 2,000 years ago, we didn't have furnaces. We had fireplaces. So what would happen is you'd stoke the fire before bed, put some wood on it. 4 hours later, you'd be done with your REM cycle of sleep, and you'd wake up, and you'd be awake for an hour or 2. You'd stoke your fire. People would usually go down the street and talk to their neighbor, make sure their neighbor woke up to stoke their fire. You'd make sure everything was okay. They'd even say that they would have tea during this time, because they hadn't had anything to drink for 4 or 5 hours. They were probably thirsty. And then they go back to sleep for 4 more hours. What they recommended in the journal was when it gets dark outside, you go to bed for your first sleep. So yeah, that does mean in the winter, like a 5:30 bedtime, which sounds weird until you think you go to bed at 5:30, you wake up at 9:30 or 10, you're up for a few hours, and then you go back to sleep for another 4 hours. Still be getting up at 5, 5:30, 6 o'clock. In the summertime, you go to bed later, but you don't have a fire to stoke. So you'd wake up after those 4 hours, everything's fine in the house, no saber-toothed tigers came to attack you, very good, back to sleep. Okay? So when I say attempts between the first and second sleep, if you're working on having kiddos and you wake up after 4 hours, give your partner a little nudge. Okay, if they went to bed at the same time as you, see if they're in the mood. And then go back to sleep afterwards. What these doctors said was that you have that 4 hours of rest first, it's really nice, your body recovers, it feels better, then you're intimate, And then you have 4 hours so that the body can focus on just sleeping and making sure that conception takes place. So, that's one thing. If you haven't tried it and you're trying, try it. Nothing to lose. So, this is 4 pages worth of stuff, 5 pages worth of stuff. Questions coming to mind related to this, something I wrote, something I said.
Diet,
Yeah.
foods you suggest eating and not eating, drinking, alcohol, like all what's good, what's bad.
Really good question. A lot of that's going to be on an individual basis, and that's part of the testing that we do here.
Okay.
What I can tell you is for the sake of hormonal health, minimizing alcohol intake is recommended because the alcohol is filtered by the liver, which is also responsible for balancing those hormones.
Okay.
Food-wise, a nice general recommendation is foods that have a lot of healthy fats in it, so fish, flax, that sort of thing. But to know what type of fish is best for your body requires the testing. Those are those essential fatty acids that I was referring to again and again. Adequate protein, because that's what most of the tissues in our body are made of. And then minerals, so that means a lot of veggies, cooked veggies though. I do not recommend raw veggies to increase fertility or conception or virility. It's cooked veggies and a good fat like butter, ghee, or coconut oil.
Cool.
Most people feel better when they eat that way. But then also clinically, I found that when they eat that way, cooking their veggies in coconut oil, butter, or ghee, eating protein, and getting a lot of healthy fats, that they also have an easier time with their health challenges, whether it's fertility or whatever it is. Their health challenges tend to dissipate because none of that stuff's processed.
Right.
That's a big part.
Why not olive oil?
We don't heat olive oil because it turns into a carcinogen. We love olive oil, but only at low temperatures. I make some, I think it's really good, delicious rosemary olive oil chicken. So what I do is I grill the chicken, and once the chicken's off the grill, I drizzle the rosemary olive oil blend onto it. So olive oil is never on the heat source.
Right.
It's great for salad dressings.
What
There's never any
what
heat.
about when you like exercise during any of this? I know like sometimes they say it's you should reduce
Uh-huh.
the amount of exercise when you're trying.
Yeah, and I think that's that stress piece because most people already have enough stress, and even the good stress of exercise is considered more stress by the body. I read, one set of research that says no exercise. I see another set of research that says exercise is recommended. I tend to split the difference with my clients. I tell them to make sure they're moving every day because once that kiddo comes out, it's only a few months before they're definitely chasing it every day. So it's good to stay in shape kind of
Right.
thing. Not necessarily doing Olympic lifts.
Right.
It's a different part of your life.
Moderation.
That's a good way to put it.
What about while you're pregnant? Is there like exercises you can't do? Or, like,
Oh yeah, there's all
stuff?
sorts of
Like,
stuff that,
Can you continue to do?
yeah, there's stuff, and this is even like standard Western medicine talks about this. The obvious ones, no jump rope. Okay, you don't want to shake the baby. Okay, but then there's stuff like doing crunches, doing leg lifts, doing squats incorrectly can put undue pressure on kiddo in the abdomen, so we would avoid those also. Yoga is really great, and there's a
I've
whole
seen tons of like prenatal yoga kind of.
all sorts of prenatal yoga, and it's really cool. There's also Baby and Me yoga for new moms to help with the recovery from the incredible stress that is labor and delivery. Helps your body bounce back once you're ready for it.
What do you think about acupuncture while you're trying to get pregnant?
Yeah, so I've spoken about this in other classes. There's 3 main natural disciplines for improving health: chiropractic, acupuncture, and nutrition.
Yeah.
Chiropractic, in my opinion, is the best at getting blocks out of the way in the nervous system. Okay, those subluxations, those things that need aligning. Acupuncture is the best, I feel, at funneling energy into a certain area of the body. What both of those disciplines are dependent upon is energy being present in the body in great enough volume. If there's no energy, you're not going to feel a roadblock when it gets out of the way. So there's plenty of construction going on in Milwaukee right now, right? If you're the only car on the road, no one's going to notice if the road shuts down temporarily because there's one car on the road. There's very little energy on the road. The acupuncture, if they funnel all the traffic onto one road, but all the traffic is one car, that's still not going to cause a jam. You're not going to notice that. Nutrition is to increase the energy in the body. So what I recommend for all my clients is after a certain point of being on a nutrition program to pursue chiropractic or acupuncture, because then there's actually energy to funnel into a spot or to make sure a block is out of the way so that energy can flow. If there's not energy, funneling or unblocking doesn't do as much. Yeah. Good question. Other questions that are bubbling up?
Can you still go to acupuncture and chiropractic when you're pregnant?
You can?
And it's still
Yeah.
doesn't do anything right?
I would, of course, encourage, I mean, I have chiropractors and acupuncturists that I trust. Well, whichever one you're going to, have a real upfront conversation with them. Planning on getting pregnant? Are you comfortable working with a pregnant person? And if there's any hesitation, I would say, maybe not then. Then you'd be like, oh, sure, of course, I love that. That kind of response. Because I want that kind of person. If I was pregnant, which I can't, sorry to disappoint you, get pregnant, I would want only people around me that are like, yes, I can help you. Okay, let's do it. Other questions bubbling up?
Did your wife take stuff like before going into labor?
Oh yeah, I brought supplements into the hospital with us.
And what do you do for that?
We had a most incredible nurse over at Children's right here. Her name's Tamara. She was amazing. And I got out the supplements and it's me, right? So I get them out and I'm like, lining them up, like really, like we're taking these and no one's stopping us. And she's like, oh, cool, supplements. And I was like, yep, we're going to use them to help the labor and delivery. She's like, cool, as long as they aren't drugs. It's like, you're amazing. This is incredible. It was a lot of heart support. Heart support because heart's a muscle, and there's a lot of muscle tissue that gets used in labor and delivery. So I wanted to make sure we were nourishing that. And then one of the other supplements, it's in here, it's called Minchex. It's very soothing, very calming to the body. Amy took some of that, I took more of it. It's pretty incredible. To see anybody go through labor and delivery is totally incredible. To see somebody who's your whole world go through it is a whole different thing. And it's like, keep your cool, dude. You're keeping your cool so that she can keep her cool. Don't blow it, Minchex. If I was making a TV commercial for Minchex, that's what it would be. Keep your cool, don't blow it. Minchex.
Did she have an epidural?
No. No, she had no interest in epidural. The conversation that we had, Amy likes to know what's going on. An epidural would shut that down.
How long was she in labor?
How long did she labor for? So she, this is a cute story. We met her sister and our brother-in-law for dinner the night before. And that was like 6 o'clock, and we had Mexican and a bunch of spicy salsa. And Amy turned to me and she was like, oh, I'm having another contraction. I was like, great, it's been 6 minutes. When they get closer, we'll go. And she was a little put off by that. And then she's like, I'm having another contraction. I was like, great, that was 5 minutes. If they get closer, we'll go. She was like, and that kept up for like a half hour. And then they started to get closer. I was like, okay, check, please. And we got to the hospital at about 8. And Morgan was born at 6:39 a.m. the next morning. So 10 hours? Yeah.
Is that her due date?
It was the day before? Yeah, the day before. She was supposed to be born the 17th. Came out the 16th. Yeah.
Do a lot of couples come to you already having like gone to fertility clinics or things like that?
I've seen quite a few couples that have done extensive testing or even hormone treatments already, gone to fertility specialists, that sort of thing. Sometimes it has been beneficial. Obviously not beneficial enough if I've seen them, if they're still coming looking for further support though. But it's usually based off of a referral where a family member hears about it and says, oh, you've been trying for a long time, or you're seeing this specialist. I have a guy too, his name's Drew. Go see Drew, Drew will take care of you, kind of thing. So that comes up a lot. Other questions bubbling up? They've been good questions. All right, you lovely humans. Thanks for coming to the class. It's always good to
Thank
see
you.
all of you. If you have further questions afterwards, I'll be hanging around for a few minutes. Go do good upon the world.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.